1. Introduction. This is an open reflection on a kind of rock opera manifesto I wrote when I was around 16 years old, called The Bird Without a Flock, or BWOF for short, so about 15-ish years ago. Let me be clear, I'm not claiming to be Nostradamus, I'm not some political or philosophical expert, so on and so on. I'm also under no delusions of grandeur that I'm going to change anyone's mind here. I'm making this for my own sanity. I'm making the video because I felt I should comment on the really intense parallels between what I wrote at that time and the present reality surrounding the upcoming 2024 US election, but I wrote it in the context of a post-9/11 USA. So basically, while there are many themes at play, such as free will, capitalism versus communism, the challenges of escaping groupthink, political gridlock, the psychological process of othering, the hero's journey as political propaganda, the challenges of maintaining democratic ideals in the face of terrorism, and more. Within the narrative, I essentially imagine the Republican Party as we know it today, or more accurately, the world as the Project 2025 agenda with the Donald Trump-esque figurehead at its center wants it to look like. So I think the following lyrics sort of paint the picture quite well. It goes, I'm fat because of fast food, strong because of Slim Jims, orange because of fake tans, and my brain is quite dumb. I like to watch sitcoms and laugh along with them. I need to go to church so that I can live real long. Sharia law is broken, my popey is spoken, cardinal law with the State of the Union. Oh God, can't you please show all of these blasphemites? You gave us the free will to determine our own rights. And by the way, I do understand that there's a distinction here between Catholics and Protestants. What we are experiencing today is much more evangelical in nature. So there's more to it than that, and I'll get into it later in the video, but the main thrust of the opera and how it pertains to today is something like, there's really no good reason to believe in free will. There's really no good reason to believe in any religion or God. Faith is at its core an inadequate method for determining actual reality, but especially when you believe in Christianity in the American context, you end up thinking that the whole world was made just for you, and you're the most important thing in it because you are told dogmatically and from the very first moment that the most important thing about you is your individuality. In this worldview, the only thing that can account for your actions and personality is a metaphysical soul, which I'm not trying to be purposely offensive, but is sort of a ridiculous thing to believe in. Meanwhile, people who hold the opinion that free will is an illusion and appeal to actual scientific and logical thinking to do this are viewed as philosophically annoying nuisances, and I think that the majority of Americans are completely unable to see their way clearly through this issue. I and others have posited for a very long time that an understanding of the illusory nature of free will has profound impacts on how you view the world and determine political belief, as well as make ethical calculations. I'm also not trying to make a video right now laying out all the arguments for free will, because there are other smarter people like Robert Sapolsky and Sam Harris who already have much more to say on this topic and have laid it out. So I'm going to do the rest of this video in two parts. First, a quick breakdown of the story so that you have any idea what the hell I'm talking about. Secondly, I'm going to give some reflection on it as they pertain to today. But the main point I'd like to make about it is something like this. I called this shit 15 years ago and I saw through the bullshit then, and it's the same kind of bullshit today. So hopefully this gives anyone out there a little bit of food for thought, and if not, it's just for my own sanity. So, part 2, story breakdown. A young fighter pilot, anthropomorphized as a bald eagle, has been tasked by an ultra-conservative right-wing religious government to go to heaven and obtain the secrets of ultimate knowledge to destroy crows, representative of terrorism. But when he expects to meet God, Yahweh, he is ultimately greeted not by Yahweh, but instead by Mother Nature, my stand-in for atheism, thus being confronted with the truth that he is just a product of the world, nothing but an animal, and what more, one of many men, and man does not control his destiny. He returns and confronts the leader of the right-wing religious government, who is simply called the American. This guy is a right-wing, autocratic, big business, dick-swinging, fundamentalist, Christian, megalomaniac. His helpers are literal fat cats, and he has the full and ardent support of the evangelical base. The young fighter pilot named Young Samuel, a representative of what I would hope politically the next generation of Americans to represent, has to confront him with the philosophical truth at the end. Some of the lyrics from the climax are commercialize, homogenize, advertise the thighs of beautiful models, big money, big power, big business, pig money, pig power, big pigness. Head honcho, ain't you sir, the fat cats, your lackeys, you congregate your way for Yahweh and condemn contrary convictions. Conspirers you claim in a boastful spout of rage. My God superior, quoting sacred scripture page. My sheep, or my customers rather, flock in droves at my demand, not directly, yet through product placement in free market hand. It then ends with the implication that unless we find a way to overcome this worldview and learn how to put ourselves in the shoes of others, then there will be political violence. And by the way, the real world inspiration for this is that my older brother did actually join the Marines, and he flew planes and then later helicopters. I was in part inspired by this, but the philosophical through line was also written as what I would hope for the coming generation of Americans to understand. Also a bit of a juxtaposition between how my brother and I saw the world at the time, as he and I are very different personalities. Part 3, how this pertains to today. So to be clear, I was not just ragging on conservative Christians in that rock opera. I am critical of a lot of religions throughout WAF, and I'm about to be critical even more right now. So on free will, like I said above, I'm not trying to lay out all of the arguments for it right now. It's not that video, but I think I can demonstrate my point quite clearly if you were to quickly imagine what it would be like if 90% of Americans suddenly believed that their actions and conscious understanding of the world were in fact no more than the product of nature and not something that you just are a soul and have the ability to do things because reasons, I'm not sure exactly what effect that would have on most people's beliefs, but undeniably it would have a really strong knockoff effect on conversations, including but not limited to mandatory minimum sentencing, prison reform, the death penalty, capital gains taxes, abortion rights, whatever the fuck J.D. Vance is talking about with parents getting double the votes over childless adults, and so on. Frankly, there's a huge divide between the kind of person who really views themselves as something like an animal or a conscious automaton and can actually face that fact as a grown-up without needing to make up stories to comfort yourself on some sort of nebulous notion that you just sort of feel like a soul and a body, and at your core you're this super important entity making the decisions for itself. People are very uncomfortable with that, and to me it's just at the end of the day a very simple calculation of cause and effect that somehow people think we can step outside of, and it just every argument falls flat. So on the topic of political gridlock and the divide in our country, again, this was not a particularly novel observation even at the time that the two wings of our country were quite diametrically opposed to one another. It's just sad that things have gotten even more divisive over time. I consider myself to be a liberal, but I don't think anyone had it on their bingo card 15 years ago that for most people in the year 2024 to call yourself a liberal, you then somehow need to defend yourself against charges that you must also believe some really wacky, goofy, woke shit. I've been a Bernie supporter for a very long time, and I also really like Andrew Yang. That doesn't mean that I necessarily, agree for taxpayer-funded sex change operations for transgender individuals in jail. Holding that position does not make me a right-wing monster either. It's a complicated issue, and nuance is just out the door. There's no nuance to be had in the year 2024, and it's quite sad. Again, another not particularly novel thing to point out, but I don't know how things are going to go after this election, but I think many people are worried about the possibility of more violence occurring after the election, because we are a very, very divided country. I basically see 4 possibilities. The unlikeliest of them is that Kamala wins, and there's no hullabaloo on the side of the Republicans about it. Yeah, right. Secondly, Kamala couldn't win, and there's going to be some political backlash, like January 6th. Who knows to what extent? Who knows if it's just going to end at this one kind of group of pissed off Republicans doing some stupid shit, or if it's going to be actually something more intense. Third, it's possible that Trump, this is sort of a mixture of pessimism and optimism, but that Trump wins, but somehow our incredibly weakened institutions are still able to keep him in check. And finally, and this is the one that would feel eerily like real life was trying to copy my high school era rock opera's vision for America, is Trump wins and actually enacts Project 25. I will go on the record here saying that though I am not a particularly enthusiastic supporter of Harris, I did vote for her, and it was not a difficult decision. I felt the need to post this video pretty much just for my own sanity before the election. It probably seems kind of rambly to anyone on the outside, but like I said, it's just an open reflection on the bird without a flock. So, why must I be bashful when I talk about politics or when I say that God does not exist? Why must I preach to the convinced? And why does the fear of being ostracized keep me from spreading new ideas? I want to be in your face, to put you in your place. I want to say what's going on here. Thank you.